Celtics Beat is brought to you by Prize Picks and the Game Time app.
What's up, everyone? Happy Friday, at least as we sit here and record it. Maybe you're catching it over the weekend or the show in, obviously, podcast form or video form on the CLNS YouTube page early in the week. Whichever the case, we thank you for being here, listening, watching, however you are consuming the content. Adam Kaufman, Evan Valenti. We are joined by Brian Barrett, host of the Ringers Off the Pike podcast, and great to have Brian back here with us. We didn't even realize, we've done each other's shows and talking to Ev the other day, who should we have on? It's like, man, it's been a while from Barrett. And I'm like, holy crap, it has. It's been months, I think, since Barrett has joined us. So while we sit and we wait for the Red Sox to sign Juan Soto, let's talk a little bit about, no, not going to happen. Heads are shaking. Let's talk a little bit about the Boston
Celtics. Better than
boys.
that.
How are you, Barrett? How's it going?
How you doing, Barrett?
What's up now?
No, I'm doing well, fellas.
We all three of us know that Juan Soto is not going to play for the Red Sox. I think we all know this. We can.
Didn't you see that video of him dancing at the wedding or whatever it was with Pedro Martinez and Jason Varitek?
Sure.
I mean, if bread wasn't broken there, I don't know when it will be.
Better chance, Soto to the Sox or John Henry buys the Celtics?
Soto to the Sox.
Soto, yeah, I think so.
That's not where I expected that one to go. I thought it was going to be like Soto to the Sox or Patriots to make the playoffs, something like that.
Yeah, I don't think anybody wants John Henry to buy the Celtics at this particular juncture, but the Juan Soto thing, I can't get myself excited for it, even though they had a 3-hour meeting, which I'm thinking to myself, why do they need to meet for 3 meetings or for 3 hours? What are they talking about for 3 hours? Like, hey, this is how we
reading an article
you.
too, not to cut you off, but I was reading an article and in there it said that they met for 3 hours, but they never discussed money. So like, I would have started with money if I'm Soto. All right, like, let's not waste each other's time. What are you thinking? Here's what I'm thinking. Let's see if this is even realistic.
Yeah. You know what's hilarious about this whole thing is they stopped negotiating with Mookie at $300 million. And whether you believe Mookie just never wanted to be here and he wanted to leave, I mean, people have that perception. But the point being is they stopped at 300, right? So Mookie's making around $30 million per season. These guys, it's unbelievable how poorly they read the market. Juan Soto wants a deal until he's 39. It's going to start at $40 million. Like, that's the low. Like, there's a chance he gets $50 million, right? Aaron Judge has already signed for $40 million on that long-term extension. So actually, if you think about it, I know this sounds crazy to say for a guy that's making $365 million, but for a guy that most of the time plays as a top 5 player in the sport, as long as he's healthy, Mookie is going to be drastically underpaid once Soto gets his money. And of course, Judge already got it.
Yeah, I mean, look, we talk about that in the NBA all the time. You know, whenever someone gets a big fat new deal, when Jaylen Brown, a year ago was the highest paid player in the NBA, and we had to have the whole conversation again about it's not about the dollars, it's about percentage of cap and yada, yada, yada. And with the TV deals, and as the money goes up, you're going to look back in a few years and you're going to say that he's on a bargain contract, or like Peyton Pritchard, he's on a bargain, all that. And it's true. The money only goes up. The money is never going down. That's not the way this works. And so, yeah, at a certain point in time, and we're far enough removed from someone like a Mookie Betts signing that new contract a handful of years ago now, that you can look at it that way. It's depressing, but you can't help but be happy for him, obviously, because he probably, even had he signed with Boston and stuck around, wouldn't have a couple more World Series championships in his back pocket. So, obviously he chose right. But look, it's a basketball show for people that have either fast forwarded or already turned things off. Let's talk about the Celtics, the 4th best team in the NBA record wise. I am giving them that slander, that treatment, because that's what happens when you dick around with the Atlanta Hawks and lose a game that you were favored by like 15, 16 points going in. I mean, they have 3 losses on the year. You want to lose to the Pacers in overtime? Okay. I mean, should have won that game, but it happens. Fall to the Warriors. Look, Steph was out of his mind, and Golden State is to be taken seriously, at least at this moment. We'll see about down the line. You don't lose that game to the Hawks. That was irritating. It was just irritating. Now, I know Ev does, wants to, like, I'm not going to bitch about it for the duration.
Sounds like you want to, though. I mean, might as well get off your chest off.
I want to because I want to because it cost me money. But putting that aside, it just I want to see. I don't want to see the playing with the food. Like, you're going to lose games, and you're going to, you're going to fall at like most regular season games at this stage. I understand the big picture of it all don't really matter. It all adds up over time. You're going to get your seeding, whatever it is. They don't care if they're the number one. I don't care if they're the number one seed. Like, I don't need them to win every game. And I realize it wasn't a blowout. They only lost by, 1 point, which credit to Miko for being a true Celtics employee. But, coming on after and doing, he mentioned that in terms of the NBA Cup, like, if you're going to lose, point differential is important. They only lost by 1. Yeah, fine. And I don't care about the winning the NBA Cup. That is not important to me at all. It's like, it doesn't even begin to register to me. I don't even care about the NBA Cup, let alone which games are NBA Cup games and which ones are not. I just want to see them don't look stale, from the jump and have to play catch up, or conversely have a big lead and then, sort of take your foot off the gas and get complacent down the stretch. And all of a sudden, when you have to snap back into action and take things seriously again, it's sort of too late. Yes, that was a winnable game. They had an opportunity at the buzzer and they didn't do it, but it was just an irritating loss. They bounced back. They demolished the Nets. I'm not worried about Boston or anything like that. Just to be perfectly clear to anyone out there watching or listening, there are just certain games that, as you're watching them, are a little aggravating. And I think, Ev, I am within the right. I know you do your whole social media thing. I don't want to hear people complaining about singular games and da-da-da. But look, singular games are going to be annoying.
Yeah.
Am I alone here, Barrett? Do you feel that way when you're watching these things? You're often doing post-game shows.
Well, for me, I gave myself 24 hours to kind of be upset about that game, because it was crazy to me. Joe Mazzulla always talks about the margins, right? And the Celtics got outshot by 25 field goal attempts in that game. It's very difficult to win. So they gave up 20 offensive rebounds, which Houston is first in the league at 15.3, so almost 5 more. Points in the paint, 68. Memphis is number 1 at 60.3. And turnovers, 20. Utah averages the most in the league. They're just under 19. So they were the worst turnover team basically in that game, worst in terms of giving offensive rebounds, and worse in points in the paint. Yet they still had a chance to win at the end of the game, and all these things happened, right? When you think about the fact that Dyson Daniels has that shot that he misses, and Okongwu puts it back in to give them the lead. Drew Holiday throws the ball into Tatum. Tatum can't make the catch. You have a turnover in that particular situation. Even before that, Jalen Johnson late in the game loses his shoe, yet still gets his own offensive rebound, kicks it out to Larry Nance, who somehow hit every 3 that he took in that particular game. So I was upset just because all of these things were happening and they couldn't figure it out. Just, hey, one stop, right, defensively, or let's not turn it over this time, or let's not have an offensive rebound, and you win that game, right? So that was the aggravating part. I also think that this team, the Atlanta team, is more difficult to play without Trae Young, because the Celtics are so good at mismatch hunting. There wasn't that guy. Like, Dyson Daniels is an awesome defender. Like, he's got a chance to be in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year. He had 6 steals. He leads the NBA in steals per game. But the thing that I look at is, how do you respond, right? So like I said, obviously, as somebody that wants to see this team win, I'm aggravated after the game. But against the Nets, those same numbers, offensive rebounds, the Nets had 3. The Pacers are last at 8.2. Points in the paint, the Nets in that game had 40. The Celtics are actually last in the NBA at 40.8. Turnovers, they gave up. They had only 8. OKC is first at 11.8. So basically everything they did wrong the previous night, they realized, like, we didn't respect our opponent. Peyton Pritchard, I love the fact that he took responsibility for it, saying, I need to bring the energy. So you're going to have these losses throughout the course of an NBA season. My whole theory now with it, because we've seen what they can ultimately do win a championship, I'm only giving myself 24 hours to get upset about one loss, unless it's like, now we see this trend throughout the season where it's like, hey, they've lost 3 or 4 games. Like, what's going on with the Celtics? At that point, maybe I'll be more concerned. But I love the bounce back against Brooklyn.
Yeah, that's the important part. The important part is they came back and they righted the ship, and they're not going to miss a beat. And this is why it kills me when people overreact to one loss. And we did it last year, and it drove me crazy. And it was a mixture of Oh, nothing in the regular season matters, but like when they lose a game, it's like the end of the world. Okay. This year, I'm not allowing people to do this because last year, I think everybody got lost in the, they haven't proven it yet. So none of this stuff matters. And we lost in all of that conversation. And I've been trying to hammer home between the end of last season, the off season, and now this season. We just did not acknowledge how historically great that team was last year until it was done. And I am not allowing people to do that this year. I like Barrett's rule of like you get 24 hours. I gave myself like 12 minutes. Where it's like, yeah, all the turnovers really bugged me. The offensive rebounding, I think I had a bigger issue with because that sometimes is like an effort thing. And that was it. I was like, you had the next day, you had people on our own network, Kaufman, saying, do they have a championship hangover? Are they just rolling through the season? And I'm like, what are we talking about? You had people on sports talk radio, which this is their job. It works, of being like, are the Celtics, again, do they have the hangover? Are they just sleepwalking through the season? I'm like, they lost a game. They're going to lose probably 19 more of these. It's going to be okay. All that matters is the health of the team and the process of by which they go and do things. And the process is mostly fine. And again, having the Nets the next night, a good team, like the Nets are good. The Nets are fun to watch. They definitely know who they are. They righted the ship. They're great. Jayson, Jaylen, everybody looked awesome. So I'm not allowing people, I will not allow this, people to overreact to one game sample sizes when just like stuff happens. Like you're gonna like credit the Hawks for ramping up their defense. Dyson Daniels, who I believe had 3 straight games of 6 steals or more, which is pretty awesome. Like he's been a kind of a game wrecker.
Like dude's unreal.
Give credit to the Hawks. They had a great plan. Also understand in a 7-game series, they would get smoked. This team would kill them. But hey, like also, and this is like kind of Joe Mazzulla-esque, be like, hey, like take the time and say like, oh, this is a way other teams might try and beat us later in the season. Let's make sure we have an answer for that next time we see a defensive coverage like this. Like, and you have to take it as that was an opportunity for a team to show us where we're weak and an opportunity for us to make some changes before like games really actually matter here. So I am not Kaufman. I'm not letting you hijack this episode trying to, the sky is falling because the team lost a 1 point.
Not falling. I never said the sky's falling. Although I do like what Barrett brought up about Peyton Pritchard, because while I certainly do not like, it is laughable. I don't hold Peyton Pritchard accountable for, a 1 point loss. He's like your 6th most important player or whatever it is. So that's fine. But in fairness, he did have a crappy game. And it's very rare that Pritchard has a crappy game. And I mean, he shot 2 for 8, all from 3, obviously. And he only had 6 points. That was sandwiched in between games that he had 23, 18, 20, 60. Like, he is a consistent scoring presence. He's averaging 16 points a game off the bench. And so it does highlight that, look, they've lost a couple of games when Pritchard's been just fine. Like he had 16 against the Warriors on 5 of 13 shooting. They lost that game. He had 16 points similarly against the Pacers in that overtime loss. So you're certainly not looking in Peyton Pritchard's direction when you lose that game. But there is a part of me, and again, don't hold him responsible, but there's a part of me, since Barrett brought it up, that does say, man, Pritchard makes one more bucket, you win that game. Like, it was an uncharacteristically bad game for Peyton Pritchard, where like these games were normal for him last year. It was a little more abnormal that he had 16, 18, 20 points. That's kind of the norm at this point. He is the leader of that second unit and scoring at a productive, consistent clip. And so when he has that blip on the radar of only 6, 8 points or whatever it may be, Boston is sort of in a situation where, oh, okay, well, they might win in spite of it, and they've got enough weapons, but maybe that is kind of a difference-making thing. Just something to pay attention to maybe going forward. But the other thing, the whole championship hangover thing, there are just certain phrases in sports, for lack of a better way of putting it, I don't know about you guys, that I just fundamentally disagree with. Like in the NFL, you probably talk about this all the time, Barrett, on your show. Look ahead spots. Like the Chiefs aren't taking the Broncos seriously because they got the Bills next. I don't believe in look ahead spots. A lot of people out there do. I think it's dumb. You play 17 games in the regular season. I think you're taking all your opponents seriously. In the NBA or whatever the sport, I don't believe in a championship hangover. I certainly don't believe in a championship hangover for a team that we spent the entire offseason talking about all the different new things that are going to be motivating them, between the Olympic snubs or not getting this MVP or that all NBA or that whatever. Like it's dumb. Like either a team, and this does not apply, just to be perfectly clear about that. This team, is the fourth best record percentage-wise in the NBA. Is off to a 9-3 start. This team is good. It's great. It's going to continue to be great. But if a team comes in limping into the next season off a championship, maybe you've made some changes to your roster, or maybe somebody is hurt, or maybe you just suck. But I don't think that all of a sudden, like they off season wasn't long enough. Championship hangover, like it's stupid. It doesn't mean you're automatically going to win a championship the next year. It's very difficult to go back to back and have that sustained run for all of those months and the extra 2 months in the postseason. And it's incredibly impressive when teams put those runs together, like the aforementioned Chiefs chasing a third straight championship. But I think if we could while we're putting things aside, Ev, if we could cast aside the notion of a championship hangover, Barrett, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, well, I would just say this is look across the league right now, right? There's 4 or 5 teams that came out of the gates where they're ready to go. OKC's rolling, and they're now dealing with this Chet injury. The Cavaliers have been awesome to start the season, and Golden State has sort of been a surprise. They've been really good. Look at the Knicks. They've been a dumpster fire. As great as Karl-Anthony Towns is from an offensive perspective, he's just as bad defensively. The numbers with him on the court are terrible, in the 9th percentile, and he, by the numbers, is the worst rim protector in the NBA. The Philadelphia 76ers have a real situation with what's going on with Joel Embiid. Look at Minnesota, right? A team that just made it to the conference finals. They just dropped back-to-back games to Portland. And look at the Dallas Mavericks. I mean, the Dallas Mavericks have not been good to start the season either. So I think when you look at this Celtics team in particular, you mentioned Pritchard. This is a guy that is averaging more points per game than the player that the Knicks gave up 5 first-round picks for in Mikal Bridges, okay? So when I look at this team, we see improvement across the board. Pritchard is better than he was last year. Look at Tatum. Tatum's the only guy in the NBA right now that is in the top 5 in free throw attempts and made threes per game. You look at Derek White and Peyton Pritchard. There's 5 players in the league that are taking 9 threes per game and hitting 40% of them. So 2 of the 5 are on the Celtics, and Peyton Pritchard and Derek White. Jaylen Brown, number 3 in the NBA in transition points per game. And how about this? He is up to 8 free throws per game. And I know he missed some critical ones. He took 4.3 last year. This is a Celtics team that is now in the top 10 in free throws per game compared to the bottom 10 that they were last year. And their whole idea of shooting more threes, it's on a totally different level. I mean, you look at the attempts, they're 50.4, Charlotte's second at 44.9. It's more than a 5 attempt gap. The makes 18.8, the Warriors are 16.1. I was talking about this on my pod with Michael Pina the other day. 244 made threes. So 732 points, if my math is correct. And their opponents hit 163, 489. So we're 11 games in, and they've outscored their opponents by 243 points from the three-point line. I mean, this is like historically unbelievable stuff. In a league, Pina made a great point. Like, everybody's now taking threes. Everybody's trying to take threes, and they're still taking way more threes than everybody else. So I've been encouraged by what we've seen from the team. We've seen improvement from Tatum. He's much more efficient than he was last year. We've seen improvement from Jaylen. Derek White has a legitimate bona fide all-star case, not just like, hey, look at the advanced metrics, look at the on-off numbers. Like, he's averaging 20 points a game on ridiculous efficiency, right? Peyton Pritchard, plus 6,000 to win 6 Man of the Year before the season. Now he's the favorite. My only concern, really, quite frankly, with this team, besides health, because, of course, at some point they're going to get the unicorn back who hasn't played a game for this team. My only concern is, like, Al at times looks a little bit slower. I mean, the numbers with him on the court defensively and at the rim have not been good. That's my only, like, little concern, because we saw what happened, how good he was in the postseason. But I truly believe that Al will be able to dial it up when it's necessary. I mean, and this is all with Hauser finally hit 3 threes in a game because he was dealing with an injury. He did that against Brooklyn. So I think, if anything, this team is not hung over at all from the championship. I think they're ready to go. And I quite frankly think this is a better version of the team we saw last year.
We're going to take one quick break. Tell you today's show is powered by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members, billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to everyone. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks, Ev.
Yeah, Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an insurance policy so that if your lineups stay in play, even if one of your players gets injured, and if your player leaves the game in the first half, doesn't return, Prize Picks keeps your lineup live. And Prize Picks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can still double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Kaufman, nobody, and I mean nobody in the industry is coming close to the kinds of perks that Prize Picks offers on a daily basis.
It's not hyperbole. That is fact. So if you think Steph Curry's going to get more than, say, 4 3-pointers next week, or Anthony Edwards more than 27 points, cook up your hot takes with your friends and then go out win real money this basketball season when you and your crew run your game on Prize Picks. Download the app today. Use the code. It is CLNS. Get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That is CLNS code. What's that, Ev? What's that code? CLNS?
Yeah, it's our initials, CLNS. Easy.
Nice and easy. $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Let's get back to the show.
Yeah, we won't really know that until KP comes back when you see this Death Star that's fully operational. And we got a little bit of an update today during some of the press conference stuff that they've had so far today. I believe Mazzulla said today, comes from everybody, but I'll read Bobby Manning's just because it's just right in front of me. Quote, Kristaps Porzingis had advanced to some on-court work and involvement in practice, Joe Mazzulla said. Quote from Mazzulla, some reads versus the coaches, some up and down work, some 5-on-0, and versus the coaches, he's getting there. So, again, I like the fact that, Boston is not putting a timetable on this. It's just like he'll be back when he's fully ready to go. You're seeing a lot of people just mention the on-court stuff like before the game. I think Forsberg was talking about, KP's on-court workout prior to the Nets game. And, the fact that he traveled them was a little bit different and a little unusual. He's been traveling in road games. I think the fact that Brooklyn is just super close to Boston, I think probably helps. But that's going to be the really fun part. Because Barrett, I agree with you. I think this team in certain areas has stepped up. You look at, and I've been trying to find some ways to highlight this, but I will have to probably put this for like a Twitter thing later, where I detail what I'm looking at. But I feel like both the Jays have leveled up, not just like a little bit, but like considerably. And it's more about their shot profile and how they're shooting. Like you mentioned, Jaylen shooting 8 free throws a game. Why is that? Well, he's absolutely killing matches right now in the post and in the mid-range area. This is one of the things that Kaufman, you and I talked about with Brandon Anderson about how, like, the difference between Mikal Bridges and Jaylen Brown is Jaylen feasts in an area that's usually not common anymore. He's one of the best mid-range shooters in the league, and he's turned into an absolute low post monster. And I think that's a credit to working with T-Mac and also working with Sam Cassell and some other things. Tatum's shot clearly looks way better this year. And if, as I said last year, if Tatum shoots slightly better from 3-point range, he's probably like hovering around 30 points a game, and he's right in that MVP conversation. Not only that, the offense runs smoother with him. You've seen many times throughout the season, Scal, Andrew mention whenever Jaylen or Jayson gets doubled that it's not a winning formula because of the way that they move the ball now. Everybody has leveled up a little bit, and that's a testament to like Mazzulla and everybody in the coaching staff, getting these guys to come back and work even harder. And then you're gonna throw this Porzingis thing into it, where I don't know if you guys remember, Barrett, I know you might, Kaufman, I know you do. KP and Jaylen were awesome together last year. It was a revelation. Like I feel like KP unlocked Jaylen a little bit, and so to have a new Jaylen-ish to come back to, like, I'm all smiles. And again, just like you said, Kaufman, take your time. There's no rush here. things are going to be fine because the bigs have sorted themselves out. Little Cornet here, a little Kata there, a little Horford here. Take your time, big guy. This is going to be. I mean, if they're already breaking the mold right now, like with the way they shoot, when Porzingis comes back, people are going to be even angrier than they are now. It's going to be great. I'm loving every second of it.
Yeah, I'm excited for him to come back. I think they obviously need him in a series against, like, say, Cleveland in the postseason, just because Cleveland's been so good to start the year. The one thing that I think when I think about Porzingis right now, I think they actually miss him more on defense. Like, you look at the rim numbers, this is cleaning the glass. 67.1% opponents are shooting 20th, and last season that was 63.6%, which was 5th. Now, it is interesting with Kata on the floor, those numbers have actually been outstanding. Kata on the floor, 64.4%, which is 4.7 percentage points better than when he's off the court. That's in the 79th percentile. Kata, though, does make a lot of mistakes. Like the other game where he fouled Cam Thomas at half court, I'm like, what's the upside here? And then like 2 plays later, he makes this unbelievable chase down block. So I think he's been certainly fun to watch. But you mentioned Jaylen and just his ability to sort of like get into that mid-range game. Imagine what that's going to be like when Porzingis comes back, because they're playing like Al Horford. There's a different respect level with Al's three-pointer compared to Kristaps Porzingis. And Kata is a roller, and he's actually been really good with Tatum. Tatum's always played well with an athletic big. You think back to Robert Williams. But obviously when Cornet plays, Cornet is not a shooter. He's a roller. And then Tillman has just been exiled. I mean, they thought like maybe he could shoot. It's crazy. Like Kata's just jumped all these guys. So when they get Porzingis back, this is like the luxury of having this team. The comparison I always make to him, and I'm not saying they're the same quality of player. Gronk is the greatest tight end of all time, arguably. Porzingis is not like the greatest center of all time. But I always feel like, hey, the Celtics just proved they can win a championship without Porzingis. Now, maybe that changes this year with some other teams being healthy too. But I feel like when they have Porzingis, I don't think anybody has a chance against them in a 7-game series because he just unlocks something that nobody else on this team can. And I will say this, Tatum right now is leading the NBA in isolation points per game, and they're using him in a very similar way to, remember last year, Porzingis was the most efficient post player in the league because Porzingis wasn't posting up like Joel Embiid. He was posting up short guys he could just shoot over. This is why Tatum's isolation numbers are so good, right? Now, he can go by a like-sized player, obviously, but how many times do we see inverted pick and roll with Derek White and Jason Tatum, and Tatum's like, oh, I got a small guy on me. I'm just going to bully this guy and get to the basket. Or he's much better. This is one area I think Tatum's much better this year. He's so much better going by big guys. It always used to be, let me get to my step back. He still does that, and he's obviously shooting better, but he's so good getting downhill against the big guys. So I do think that's something that's sort of switched where they're like, okay, we can sort of have the same impact that Porzingis had against smaller players with Tatum and mismatches. And the Celtics are the best team in the league right now going at mismatches, as we saw in the finals. Like, I mean, Luka got abused.
While we're talking about Tatum, and you mentioned obviously the free throw opportunities ballooning for Jaylen Brown, Tatum is also right now at a career high attempts per game, 8.9. And that is more than two more than last year. Last year was at 6.7. So it's a whole extra trip to the free throw line per game with the 9 attempts, basically. Now, excuse me, the percentage has taken a step back. He was at 83% and change last year, down from 85 the couple of years before that, and 87 going back a handful of years. 81% right now, very early on, plenty of time, obviously, to, lift that up. Numbers jump all over the place.
Why does he take the tees? Is this just a superstar thing?
That's exactly where I wanted to go. So,
sorry.
Kate, no, I'm glad you brought it up. So part of the reason that the percentage is what it is, because the man just keeps missing technical foul shots. He's out there on the floor. Someone's got to take it. Joe Mazzulla was asked about it, said, I have nothing to do with it. The players decide who's on the floor, who goes and takes the shot. And this is where this is truly, it may not sound like I'm leading into it this way. This is an appreciation of Jayson Tatum. This is a golf clap on maturity, ego, whatever else, that the other day he said to Peyton Pritchard after he missed one, you do it. You go take it. I love that. I absolutely love that. And that's not me saying like, Jayson, you keep missing these things, please stop taking them. I mean, maybe, depends on who's on the floor. But him recognizing that he's in a little bit of a rut, he's got the yips when nobody's around him shooting free throws. I don't know what it is. I don't know why he's missing these shots. It's not like he's a bad free throw shooter, but Payton is borderline automatic. And for him to, I don't know. I can't sit here and say like, oh, would LeBron ever do that? Because I have no idea if LeBron has ever done that. But I don't look at LeBron and think of him as someone that would do that, or many of these other guys that are the stars of the league that, could justify handing it off like you go take it. And so I appreciate, again, I think there's a maturity aspect to this that should not go unnoticed or undiscussed, that Tatum's just saying, like, Payton, you go handle this, go get us the free point. Because honestly, some of those in the past week have been a little detrimental. They've almost been momentum shifting in missing these technical opportunities. Hell, the overtime the other day, they started with a technical free throw and he missed it. So like these, again, I'm rambling, but Barrett, I like the fact that Tatum is recognizing, for whatever reason, mentally, this is an area of weakness for him right now, and he doesn't have to do it.
Yeah, well, I would also say like that sort of goes to his personality, and you could do Derek White too. Derek White is like never. I don't think he's ever missed a clutch shot in his life, so I don't think he's going to miss a technical free throw. He's been like a 90% guy for the past two seasons, but that's sort of Tatum's game, right? Where it's like, you mentioned the technical foul thing, but think about how often he screens. And besides like big guy superstars, not a lot of wings and guards. Like Steph Curry does it. That's why he's one of the greatest, not the reason, but part of he's a very unselfish superstar, right? Like he doesn't care if he's running around and because two guys chase him, somebody else gets an easy opportunity at the rim. Tatum's similar in a different way. Like this guy screens all the time. And we think back to the NBA Finals, even though he wasn't shooting the ball well, it didn't distract him from doing the other things, right? I mean, how many guys right now in the NBA could play point guard on offense, because that's what he had to do. He had to be the playmaker so they could bring out the big. So in that series against Dallas, he had a game where he had the most drives in the history of his career. He's been in the NBA for a long time now. And in the finals, he did this, right? Which is not his game. He's not really a high drive guy. He's a very efficient drive guy when he does it, but that's not ordinarily what he does. So he's playing point guard, and then he's guarding the other team center. Like, it's one of the most underrated parts of their championship is because you had this guy, because you have this wing that can guard centers. I'm not saying every center, obviously can't guard Jokic, but that type of center, like a rim roller like Gafford and Lively, it took away the Mavericks' best play. And prime LeBron, like, he could certainly do it, but who in the NBA right now could do that? Giannis won't guard anybody's best player. That's like not in his DNA. He doesn't do it that way. He's better as like a help defender. I mean, I don't even know if Kawhi can do it because he doesn't have like really the same height that Tatum has. I don't know if there's one guy in the NBA that can do what Tatum did in the finals. And I think sort of Tatum's versatility as a player, like he's a much better playmaker as a sister. He's one of the best rebounding players in the entire league for his position. Like he's probably the best rebounder as a forward in the entire league right now. He now can shoot threes better. He can get to the free throw line. There's really, and he's an elite defensive player. There's really no holes in his game. When you look at the other best players in the league, like Jokic is on a different level right now. Like he is just carrying that team, and he's not the detriment on defense that people thought. But like take Luka, we just saw it in the finals, right? Luka's not a guy that he has a real weakness that can be exposed.
Just saw it last night, or what I should say Thursday night, as he literally fell asleep and let Jordan Clarkson throw a pass backdoor to lose a game in the final seconds.
Yeah, I know. Like even Giannis can't shoot. You know what I mean? Like he legitimately can't shoot. Okay, so like that's the concern. And look at Giannis like the past couple of years too. Like his health record is not the best. By the way, not to go on a digression, although I think I just went on a digression. It's like that thing with Jaylen. I mean, that was embarrassing.
Oh, the childish thing where he called.
Yeah, that was embarrassing.
Which aspect of it? Giannis's behavior, Jaylen calling him a child and getting ripped by, not ripped, but poked at by Nike, and then Jaylen answered. Like, which part of it is embarrassing?
I thought the Giannis part was the most embarrassing because, okay, you elbowed the guy, and like that happens, right? It's a basketball game, but either ignore Jaylen, don't go up to him, or actually shake his hand. Like I think any of those other things would have been better than his decision. Like that was like when you say child, that like literally is a childish thing. That's like,
Oh yeah,
Kaufman, I know you have kids.
My
Like
children will do.
yeah, kids do that to each other, right? Like it literally like Jaylen, I thought explained it perfectly that it was childish. Jaylen's like, I don't have any time for this right now. Like that was
Trying to win a basketball game
games.
you dink.
yeah.
All right, we'll take a quick break, get right back to the show. But we got to tell you, today's show, it is powered by Game Time. Game Time is the easiest place to score tickets to whatever event you want to go to. Sure, basketball's coming, football's in full swing, baseball, depends where you live, I guess, but that's just generally behind us. You have hockey, that's going on right now. You want to swoop out to the Garden, watch the Bees, but it's not just sports. There's concerts, there's comedy, theater. Tickets can be found all over the place at Game Time. Even a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier, Ev. And Game Time Picks, it filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so that you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets.
And they have this new thing, Kaufman, called the Super Deal. I don't know if you've seen this yet, if you've been perusing the Game Time app, but basically what happens is Game Time will show you. You pick we always talk about the Celtics in the show. Let's say we wanted to go to opening night, and you pick you're looking through the ticket options. They'll have something called the Super Deal, which means it's in the top 1% of all tickets available for that event. If it has that super deal, you better pounce immediately because those tickets will not be there long. They're too good of a deal.
Lowest price guarantee, like Ev said. So download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code. It is CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Again, that code CLNS. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code CLNS. $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Get back to the show.
I will say one of my favorite trends, and I'm curious, Barrett, how you feel about this. Is there were 13 games into this thing, and trends are starting to take shape and take hold, and shape narratives throughout the year. And one of my favorite things so far, because it's kind of an opposite to what we've been used to with these two guys. Normally, it's Jaylen Brown starting hot and coming out of the gates, and Jaylen kind of like waiting back and kind of taking what the game brings him, kind of a little LeBron-esque, right? LeBron used to do that, with past playoff teams where he wouldn't be like totally involved. He'd let everybody else get involved. Then when the game started to pick up a little bit and it started to be, closer to the end of the game, LeBron would start to insert his dominance a little bit. But what I like now, and Barrett, I'm curious where you're at with this, is I think we all know Jayson Tatum leads the NBA in first quarter points. One of the things I think a lot of us have noticed is Jayson plays the entire first quarter and then sits to start the second, comes back in usually around like 6 minutes. I want to say like 6 minutes to go in the first half. I like this. I actually really enjoy like aggressive Tatum coming out, asserting himself, like getting this team moving, and then, taking a backseat a little bit until things need to be, taken care of. I think he's done a better job in the third and fourth, like reading when to get aggressive, when he should really like, oh, hey, like we're not playing well right now. We're coming out of the half, like we need to start fast and let me get this team moving, whether he's like, initiating the offense or actually scoring. How do we feel, gentlemen? I'll start with Barrett, about Tatum playing the entire first quarter, but in a stark contrast to what these guys normally did, saying like, let me be the guy that starts this thing, and Jaylen, why don't you like pick up where I leave off?
Yeah, it's a great point because Jaylen obviously has been frequently up there in the top 10 in first quarter scoring. I actually love it. And I wonder who deserves the credit for it, if it's Joe Mazzulla himself, if it's somebody else on the coaching staff that suggested this, because Tatum last year, as we were mentioning, he did so much playmaking in the playoffs, right? And had to basically play point guard. And I think about it this way. It's like, hey, this is our best player. We want him to show you who he is early, right? So he's going to be attacking from the beginning of the game. And I feel like that also gets Tatum going because Jaylen is always going to be aggressive, getting downhill. And when Jaylen goes off the court at the end of the first quarter there, we saw it in the Brooklyn game, Tatum, it was 3 straight drives to the basket, got to the free throw line a couple of times, and just a couple of other times hits him. He had a crazy shot around, I forget who the defender was on the Nets, but it was one of their big guys. But I think it was Claxton, actually. But I feel like he's way more aggressive this year than he's been in previous years. And when you already have that first quarter that Tatum has where he's over 11 points per game, I think, in the first quarter at this point. Yeah, 11.3. then you're like, okay, in the third quarter, I don't have to be like, okay, this is the time I have to get going. He's just like, all right, I'm already there. Like, I'm already at that point. So I thought it was a genius move. I was surprised because I'm like, Jaylen has been like the tone setter for so long for this team. I actually love it that Tatum is the guy doing it.
Yeah, we got so used to the first quarter Jaylen shout outs anytime we were watching a game. And look, it still pops up from time to time. We've seen a couple of vintage first quarter Jaylen performances so far this year, but I'm in line with you guys. I like that they're just, right now, big picture, we're a big picture show. I think they're just sort of in an experimentation phase a little bit. All right, we know what we're capable of. We know what we did last year. We got to the promised land. People are still in the organization collecting their rings, what feels like on a daily basis. Right now, let's see what we can do a little bit differently before we have Porzingis, and who knows if the guy's going to make it through the year healthy anyway, and what different looks we can throw at certain situations. And so this one is different. It's a look outside the box, compared to the way they did it last year, and it's clearly worked out. It's as long as everybody is on board, keep rolling with it, keep doing what you're doing. I know that we are relatively tight on time, so I want to mix in a couple more things, including a big game, seemingly, that the Celtics have on the way. It'll be big regardless, but could be particularly big because the Cleveland Cavaliers are the only unbeaten remaining in the NBA right now. They are 13-0 atop the Eastern Conference with a game as we sit here later on tonight. I do think it's a game they could lose. I don't think they will, but I think this is at least one that I am entertaining as a possible loss for Cleveland, and that is the Chicago Bulls. But it's in Cleveland, probably won't be a problem. I don't think Donovan Mitchell will allow it to be a problem, quite frankly. So in all likelihood, they do win. And then, provided they get past that, I'm not in the least bit worried about the Charlotte Hornets in their next game. And so we could be looking at the 15-0 Cleveland Cavaliers playing host to the Celtics on Tuesday night, which I bring up this game because it's before, we'll be recording next. And so I'm just curious, one, if you think the Celtics knock off if they're still undefeated Cleveland Cavaliers, or independent of what their record is, if Boston wins that game, but also what you make of what you've seen so far of the Cavs and exactly how seriously we should be taking them. Because, the Bucks, the Sixers, they are a disaster. And honestly, I don't think they're going to climb out of it. I don't. I'm not saying both are going to miss the playoffs, but even if they squeak in, play in tournament, playoffs, whatever it is, I don't think they're going to do anything when they get there. So I think we need to start to kind of reassess who the actual threats in the Eastern Conference are. I said coming into the year, the New York Knicks, right now, they're a middling team. They're below 500. It's not quite working the way they want it to. But it's early. That stuff can take time. Didn't take time for the Celtics last year when they brought in their new pieces. But for most teams, when they do bring in new assets, it does take time. Look at the Timberwolves, who Barrett brought up before. So what are you thinking of Cleveland and just the East in general?
So for me, I do think Cleveland is the best team besides the Celtics, and kind of an obvious statement based on the fact that when we're recording this, they're undefeated. But the Knicks, they have real issues defensively that we went through. And I would also say, I don't think Mitchell Robinson is curing those issues, because how often is he going to be on the court? And Karl Anthony Towns in Minnesota, the reason they traded for Gobert is because he can't play the five defensively. We saw the Celtics pick on him on opening night. So unless Mitchell Robinson is like what we saw last year from Hartenstein, I don't think that the Knicks are a threat. I just can't trust the 76ers right now with the health. Embiid looked awful in the first game that he played, and that team has a lot of defensive issues. And the Bucks are a dumpster fire right now. I think it's more likely that Giannis gets traded than they play in the Eastern Conference Finals. So with the Cavs, Kenny Atkinson has done a lot of interesting things. One was, hey, like Evan Mobley, we drafted him second overall. He's really good. Let's feature him more in the offense rather than be concerned about him taking threes. Like, let's actually do things he's good at. That's certainly how it should work. With Mitchell and Garland, they've played better together. There's two things, though, that the reason I think there'd be a difficult series, and I think that you would need Porzingis for this one because he can pull one of those bigs out. Like, you can't leave Porzingis. But the one thing I'd say about them, the Celtics' two best players are wings. I don't know if they have the answers for those guys defensively. Like, I know Mobley's a great defender and an awesome defender, would probably be in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year. I don't think he can cover one of your wings. And the other thing is this, guys. Their shooting, it's not sustainable. So 5 guys in the rotation are shooting north of 40%. LeVert, his career 34.3 is at 45. Garland, career, good shooter, 38.7%, but he's almost at 45. Mitchell, 36.7%, he's at 40.7%. Jerome, 36%, not a lot of attempts. He's at 57.7. He's been a revelation for them. I actually think he's a good rotation player. The biggest one is Okoro. He's at 35.2% for his career, 48.5%. So with Cleveland, yes, it's their offense is much better than it's been, and give Atkinson credit, right? They do a really good job staggering their 2 guards and staggering their 2 bigs. I just, from the way they're made up, I don't think they have, as great as they are defensively, I don't think they have the right answers for the Celtics defensively. And I don't trust their shooting. Like, I'm sure Garland's going to shoot over 40%. The guy's an outstanding shooter, but the rest of these guys, maybe Mitchell will. The Okoros, the LeVerts of the world, I don't buy into it.
Yeah, I don't know. Isaac Okoro, when he got drafted, he was not a great shooter. It was more about defense, and he hasn't really done anything to really bring the offense along from a shooting standpoint. The Celtics should be comfortable leaving him alone and just saying, hey, if Isaac Okoro is going to beat us in the corner, then so be it. This could be a fun game. Again, this is a game that I think Boston will be up for. So it should be a fun one just in terms of like energy and things. I think Boston will want to go in there. There's this thing that happens, and you can see it with Golden State, especially when anytime they play a big game, Steph Curry is just still like, I'm the baddest guy here, and we're gonna win this game. Like there's a real energy to that, and you can feel it every time you play them.
Well, look at it against the Mavericks the other day.
Yeah, I think this is Boston's opportunity to say, hey, like, it's cute that you're 13, 14, 15 and 0 or whatever, but like we still run this thing, man. Like let's like this isn't anything serious. I want to see that energy, and it's only energy you get from being a champion, I think. And I think anytime you see Denver feels that way. Boston, I think in some of these big games has to assert that dominance, and that's my one thing that I still love about Steph Curry. It's like, they could be the worst team in the league. He's still going to walk on that floor being like, you ain't going to beat me tonight. There's no way. I just love that confidence, and it only comes by winning. And, the Cavs are a great story. I'm thrilled for Kenny Atkinson. I like probably both of you, like pissed that he got fired after.
He got a raw deal in Brooklyn.
It was just not fair, like at all whatsoever. He literally built that team. Like him and Sean Marks went through the really tough lean years to build a program and like culture. So I'm pumped that he has an awesome opportunity. He's making the best out of it. But I really am curious to see just like the attitude that Boston plays with, because that's the stuff that is generation defining. And if Boston can find a way to play with that kind of swagger, I think they certainly played with it opening ring night, played with that kind of like, for the champs, like, we're going to dust you guys. I want to see that again. I think they kind of let go of the rope a little bit on that. I want to see them pull it back their way a little bit.
Is that game in Cleveland?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that'll be fun, because that building, although I can't stand the PA announcer, like when he announces when they hit a shot, that's so loud. I don't know why it's so loud when he announces anybody that scores, but obviously these guys have played a lot of big games in that building, right? Obviously they played in the playoffs last year, but going back to like maybe when we thought we knew Tatum was going to be a star, when he dunked on LeBron, when LeBron was still with the Cavaliers. So I'm excited for it too.
Yeah, should be a fun one, and be a nice little, you're cute, put you in your place kind of opportunity for the Boston Celtics as well. We'll see if it winds up happening. But Brian Barrett, again, he hosts the Off the Pike podcast, part of the Ringer network of podcasts, and a certain noted Celtics fan, Bill Simmons, his boss, is working on a nice Celtics documentary, a multi-part that people can go out and read about, and looking forward to checking that out when it debuts in 2025 as well. Barrett, what do people need to know as far as how often your show drops and where to find you and all that?
At least 3 times a week. We'll have one up after the Patriots, of course, this weekend when they try to get another win, this time against the Rams. We'll have James White on after that one on Sunday, and then we'll be back again on Tuesday after the Cavaliers and the Celtics. Cannot wait to pod after that one. Hope I'm happy after that one. I think I will be.
Yeah. Otherwise, remember, give yourself 12 minutes, like Ev said, and then it's on to the next thing. Brian Barrett from The Ringer, Evan Valenti, I'm Adam Kaufman. Everyone, check out the podcast on the regular, be it in your whatever download form that you subscribe to. We appreciate that, or obviously in video form if you like looking at us, the CLNS YouTube page. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you again next week.